Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here. My name's Brian. And today I'm doing a little something different, sort of inspired by the release of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the new Indiana Jones adventure, which is in theaters, which I enjoyed myself. Clearly not everyone is enjoying it, but it definitely was a nice watch for me. And so what I decided to do was I was sort of a little listless, and I was looking for something to occupy myself, to sort of start watching certain kinds of movies, and this was kind of a catalyst. So I was like, oh, let's watch some adventure movies. I haven't watched a lot of adventure movies, or I haven't rewatched some that I own in years. So obviously you drag out your Indiana Jones 4K set. I have the Steelbook set here, and so I started going through these, and that's a lot of fun. That's a very basic thing. Obviously, a lot of people are revisiting these films, but I just started going through my collection, and I was like, oh, these are some fun and interesting films. And so a lot of these I haven't rewatched, so these are, I don't want to say recommendations because I can't vouch for all of them, but there are some I can definitely vouch for that I will point out as I go. But this is just sort of the pile of movies I put together to watch while I was in the spirit of adventure, so to speak. And so I'm going to go through these pretty quickly, but I'll try and give you a little bit about each one if I can. I'll start with some of my favorites. I'll start with Dark of the Sun. This is a really great movie. I think I first heard of from Tarantino. It is directed by the great Jack Cardiff, who was a cinematographer. He worked with the Archers, Powell and Pressburger, shooting things like Black Narcissus, and just a really brilliant cinematographer. But he's a good director in his own right, and this is one of my favorite adventure movies. And this one features Rod Taylor, Jim Brown, Yvette Mimieux, and it is kind of a guys on a mission movie. And this is a really nice Warner Archive Blu-ray. And Elric and I were lucky enough to be involved in the commentary back when we had contacts at Warner Archive. And so it's me and Elric talking to Larry Karaszewski and Josh Olson. That's just a little something. It's not why I'm picking this movie, but the movie is great. It says, take elite commandos, send them on a do-or-die assignment, and sit back and watch the action explode. The men on a mission formula that worked in 1967's Dirty Dozen and Where Eagles Dare, which is a good guys on a mission movie, good adventure movie in its own right, but provides another salvo of volatile screen adventure in this Strike Force saga released in 1968. Rod Taylor and Jim Brown are among a mercenary unit rolling on a steam train across the Congo, headed for the dual task of rescuing civilians imperiled by rebels and recovering a cache of diamonds. The film's violence is fierce, unforgiving, ahead of its time. Quentin Tarantino would offer a tribute of sorts to this red-blooded wallop of a cult fave by using a part of its compelling score in Inglourious Bastards. So, yeah, he obviously likes this movie. And the cover is pretty great. You see Rod Taylor running around with a chainsaw, and that does actually happen in the movie. And he and Jim Brown are just really great together. So this is the highest recommendation for this adventure list I'm putting together. Next up, I would call out The Naked Prey. This is a Cornell Wilde film that he directed and stars in, and it's pretty relentless. This one's a Criterion Blu-ray. I want to say he was in his late 50s or something when he made this, and he's pretty exposed, almost shirtless, with like a loincloth through pretty much the whole movie, and he looks pretty good for a guy that age. But it's a really neat movie with not a lot of dialogue. The back says, the glamorous leading man turned idiosyncratic auteur Cornell Wilde created in the 1960s and 70s a handful of gritty, violent explorations of nature of man. None more memorable than Naked Prey. In the early 19th century, after ivory hunting safari offends a group of South African hunters, the colonists are captured and hideously tortured. And that is pretty intense. Basically, he's hired as a guide for some sort of boorish, I think they're American, hunters, and they just will not sort of pay attention to the customs of the country that they're in, and they end up getting pretty soundly killed in a pretty horrible way. So that's fairly harrowing. Are captured and hideously tortured. A lone marksman, Wild is released without clothes or weapons to be hunted for sport, and he begins a harrowing journey through savannah and jungle back to a primitive state. Distinguished by vivid widescreen camera work and unflinchingly ferocious action scenes, The Naked Prey is both propulsive, stripped to the bone narrative, and a meditation on the concept of civilization. So it's really a great, he's afforded an actual chance to live because he was a bit more respectful, but nonetheless he is associated with these dudes, and so they will kill him, or they were going to try to, the natives. And so it's a really, like I said, intense chase movie, and there's not a lot of dialogue, and I'm just a big fan. 2.35:1 widescreen. It's really solid. So Naked Prey would be another recommendation. There's a bunch of Warner Archive here. There's some Kino here. In the more tongue-in-cheeky but still very fun vein, Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze. This is a Warner Archive release based on, I think, a comic book, based on a novel by Kenneth Robeson, directed by Michael Anderson, based on the first of Kenneth Robeson's 181 adventure-packed Doc Savage books. Okay, they weren't comics, it was books. Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze, hits the screen with all its gee-whiz, gung-ho spirit intact, and its bold protagonist who, with having a Herculean body, is also a surgeon, linguist, and inventor, remains determined to do right, and to all and wrong to no one. Ron Ely, TV's Tarzan, plays the strapping savage in this high-camp, big heroics tale of his trek into the Valley of the Vanished to confront the power-hungry Captain C's, Paul Wexler, and behind the camera are pros who know how to get the most of this entertainment bronze mine. Veteran fantasy film producer George Pal and film director Michael Anderson, who also did Logan's Run. So this one's a lot of fun, and I was really excited when this Blu-ray did come out. And I haven't seen a lot of people talking about this one since it came out. It is a cult favorite for a reason. It is a little campy, but if you're a fan of Buckaroo Banzai, I feel like that whole idea of he's a surgeon, linguist, inventor, it's very much seeming like it's coming from a character like this, if I had to guess. But this one's a lot of fun too. Let's see here. The Wind and the Lion, another Warner Archive. This is John Milius directed, and stars Sean Connery, Candice Bergen, Brian Keith, and John Huston. And Sean Connery brings his commanding presence and rugged heroism to the lead role of desert chieftain Razuli in this rousing historical epic filled with eye-dazzling vistas and sweeping battle scenes. In 1904 Morocco, European powers desire a foothold in the Arab world, and Razuli is determined to stir up tribal fury against them, so he kidnaps an American widow, Candice Bergen, and her children, igniting a chain of events that include President Theodore Roosevelt, Brian Keith, wielding a big stick of foreign policy, and Razuli matching wits and sharing mutual admiration with his lovely captive. John Milius scripts and directs, bending true-life fact to serve his storytelling craft, shaping history into spiritual screen legend. This one is a very enjoyable adventure. And another one that I don't think a lot of people have seen or talk about, but yeah, very solid stuff from John Milius, who gets a commentary track on this as well. So that is another Warner Archive. We have Zulu from Twilight Time. This one's out of print, unfortunately, but this one is Cy Infield directed, and I think I have two Cy Infields in a row, actually. Director Cy Infield's magnificent epic about the Battle of Rorke's Drift pits a tiny force of 150 British colonials against the massive power of 4,000 Zulu warriors, and comes up with a classic film about honor and valor in the face of outrageous odds. Starring Stanley Baker, Michael Caine, Jack Hawkins, Nigel Green, and James Booth. Film is a unique combination of boys' own adventure and potent anti-war sentiment. featuring a sterling score by the one and only John Barry. This has a commentary by Lem Dobbs and Nick Redman, R.I.P. But that one's very enjoyable. Another Cyan Field is Sands of the Kalahari. Also has Stanley Baker. A chartered plane crashes in the remote African desert after colliding with a swarm of locusts. It's not harsh surroundings or the vicious baboons that the survivors have to worry about, but a fellow crazed passenger. The stellar cast includes Stuart Whitman as a businessman and big game hunter, Stanley Baker as a chain-smoking and alcoholic mining engineer, Susanna York as a beautiful divorcee, Nigel Davenport as the plane's captain, Theodore Bickel as doctor, and Harry Andrews as an elderly gentleman. This was the sixth and final teaming of Baker and Zulu director Cy Infield. So this is an Olive Films release, but kind of a disaster movie meets adventure, baboons and plane crashes and stuff. All right, what else have we got here? More to the direct, Raiders ripoffs. There's a lot of them. King Solomon's Mines. This is with Richard Chamberlain and Sharon Stone, and John Rhys Davies is, of course, a big part of the Raiders franchise. He is in Dial of Destiny as well. Nice to see him there. This is J. Lee Thompson directing. I will be honest and say that I did rewatch this, and I have some folks that follow me that I have recommended movies to me, and this was one that came up, and I gotta be honest, it did not hold up for me. It did not engage me as much as, but I do think it's worth a look for others. Just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean that people won't enjoy watching it. This is another Olive Films Blu-ray, sort of a bare bones thing. I do remember liking these as a kid. This is Cannon Films, really taking off on the Raiders idea, with King Solomon's Mines. And it's interesting, but yeah, it didn't quite work for me. Sharon Stone a little too much in this one. And I'd forgotten that she's also in the sequel they did, which is Alan Quartermain and the Lost City of Gold. Not directed by J. Lee Thompson, directed by Gary Nelson. I haven't had a chance to rewatch this one, but they're back for an exciting adventure in this action-packed Alan Quartermain and the Lost City of Gold. Let's see here. This one, I think, has James Earl Jones, Henry Silva. I'm definitely curious to rewatch this one. I feel like I might have liked this more than the original when I was a kid, so we'll see. But anyway, that's an Olive Films one that I have. Then you have another J. Lee Thompson. We have Firewalker. And this one I definitely liked, again, as a kid, but I seem to recall people not liking it as much now. But it's Chuck Norris and Lou Gossett. I've seen it called basically like a Hope and Crosby road movie crossed with Indiana Jones. And that's kind of what I remember. I remember them being a fun duo. Melody Anderson, Will Sampson, Sonny Landham, and John Rhys Davies again starring this one. This one I may watch soon. I've heard some people really hate it, but I remember liking the camaraderie between the two of them and ultimately enjoying the movie as a kid. So we'll give that one a look. Then we have Treasure of the Four Crowns, which I have talked about on the channel before. This is a wonderful 3D Blu-ray from Kino Lorber. I was so impressed. I liked the movie. I'd seen a bootleg of it in an Anaglyph 3D, which is obviously not great, but this Blu-ray 3D done by I want to say this is a 3D done by the folks that do the 3D restorations for Kino 3D Film Archive. And it's really great. Like, the opening sequence is just wonderful. It's basically he's in Tony Anthony plays the, I guess, Indiana Jones stand-in, and he goes into this castle at the beginning, and there's snakes and traps and all kinds of fun stuff. It's a really great opening and really gets your attention. And then from there, it becomes actually kind of a bonkers movie at a certain point. There's a really crazy mission that they go on. Anyway, I really like this one a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's Italian, and you'll feel that. But a really great Blu-ray from Kino. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, The Naked Jungle. This is an imprint Blu-ray. This is kind of Heston. It's a little more soap opera, but it's Heston in the jungle. He gets a mail order bride, but it doesn't go well. So there's that drama at the beginning, and then it becomes sort of like a siege of ants, and they have to escape, and it's fun. And there's a lot of Heston movies that he did, adventure movies. In fact, I have there's two versions of Secret of the Incas. There's an imprint version, and there's also this Kino version. And I know for a fact that Secret of the Incas is, as I mentioned on my channel before, a direct influence on Raiders of the Lost Ark. If you see Charlton Heston in this, he's wearing the leather bomber jacket, he's wearing the fedora, and he's kind of a scoundrel who, lives in this, I want to say he's in like rugged adventurer Harry Steele, in a thrilling yarn, breathtakingly shot at Machu Picchu. So he's near there, and he's sort of luring the tourists with lots of, baloney stories. But then he gets word of a real treasure, and it kind of gets roped into that. And he's fun as a scoundrel, I find. I enjoy him. There's another movie that I couldn't find my DVD of that's totally different than that, but I like it, and I think it falls slightly into this adventure category. And it's called Motherlode. And basically the idea is that Nick Mancuso and Kim Basinger go looking for this guy who went missing in the wilderness, and they end up crashing their plane near where this Charlton Heston character is living, in this mine where he's maybe found this motherlode of incredible gold treasure. And it becomes like a weird slashery kind of movie with him with this Irish accent. It's very, very odd, but interesting. So it almost falls in this category, but it's another Heston. But Secret of the Inca is a lot of fun. Plunder of the Sun. This was part of one of the Imprint Films film noir box sets. This is a nice discovery for me. This is Glenn Ford. Similarly to Secret of the Incas, an American insurance adjuster unwittingly becomes involved in an archaeological artifact smuggling and treasure hunting in Mexico. And it's more noir, but it's definitely got that, filmed on location, exotic travelogue kind of vibe. And Glenn Ford is good in it. I really enjoyed this one. This one's really solid. Definitely Plunder of the Sun. Then we have, let's see here, what else? Well, this is a different kind of adventure movie, but I love Atari. Howard Hawks' film Atari, starring John Wayne and Hardy Kruger and Elsa Martinelli, Red Buttons. And this one, a great score by Henry Mancini. Screenplay by the great Lee Brackett. She's wonderful. About a group of highly skilled professional game hunters in Africa, only they don't use bullets. They capture the ferocious big game with strong ropes and cameras for zoos and circus attractions. It is an exciting, death-defying business. It's really great. It's a lot of fun. It's long, but it's a Hawk's tale of professionalism, and it's kind of goofy in parts, but there's some great scenes of them chasing down rhinos that are really like crashing into the cars. They've got tires on the outside edges of the trucks because they're actually getting hit by rhinos. And there's a great story I remember Alan Arkush telling about showing his kids this movie and saying, like, those are not CG rhinos, and then the kids later showing somebody else the movie and saying the same thing. Those are real rhinos. So it's fun. And that lively, jaunty score from Henry Mancini, one of my favorites. I have the LP. Anyway, Atari, a fun adventure movie. Then we have, let's see, Tarzan's Greatest Adventure. This is another Warner Archive. This one has Sean Connery, so a little connection to Last Crusade. It has, Gordon Scott as Tarzan in this one, directed by the great John Gillerman, who I'm a huge fan of. I've talked about him on the channel a lot. Mighty Lord of the Apes, Gordon Scott, Tarzan on the Deadly Trail. He's determined to find the diamond hunters, including Anthony Quayle and Sean Connery, who brought terror and death to a peaceful village. But as much as Tarzan is a tracker and an avenger, he's also a protector. An irresponsible gadfly from the so-called civilized world intrudes on this quest, and Tarzan knows he cannot leave her to fend for herself. Tarzan's Greatest Adventure is a widely applauded as one of the best and most grown-up films in the entire film of animals of the jungle lord's exploits. It's definitely one of the best Tarzan movies I've seen, and this Blu-ray is very nice. very enjoyable adventure film. Tarzan's Greatest Adventure. Let's see here. I've got a few more things that I just kind of threw in here. Krakatoa, East of Java. This is more of a proto-disaster movie, but definitely has that sense of adventure to it. This was an epic Cinerama, I want to say, film. Epic adventure that shook the earth to its core. In Singapore Harbor, 1883, Captain Chris Hansen, Maximilian Schell, of the Batavia Queen, embarks on a perilous search for sunken treasure off the island of Krakatoa. To find a fortune in rare pearls, he must have a boiling, let's see here, a boiling sea, douse an uprising by a horde of convicts, and outwit a greedy crew desperate for more than their fair share, only to confront the most devastating and catastrophic volcanic explosion the modern world has ever felt, creating giant tidal waves that engulf the island and endanger all aboard. TV veteran Bernard L. Kowalski directed this widescreen spectacle that featured a splendid cast that included Diane Baker, Brian Keith, Sal Mineo, rousing score by Frank Duvall. I thought this was like a Cinerama movie, like really widescreen, where they had the 3 projectors to make the widescreen image. It is 235-1. This is an older, I think this is an older Kino Blu-ray. But anyway, I haven't seen this yet. This is one I've been meaning to see for years. A friend of mine who was a big disaster movie fan would talk about this movie, not necessarily in glowing terms, but in a way that I was like, okay, I got to check that out. So I just wanted to put that on the adventure list. Then we have Flight of the Phoenix. This is a Criterion Blu-ray. This is directed by Robert Ulrich. Similar to, what was the other? Sands of the Kalahari. We have a downed plane with various crew members, including a captain played by the great James Stewart. So you have Richard Attenborough, Peter Finch, Hardy Kruger again, and Ernest Borgnine in this one. Plane crashes in the middle of the desert. They have to figure out if they can repair the plane or can they make a new, smaller plane that can get them out of the desert. But a really great and gritty adventure film for sure. Nice Blu-ray from Criterion. Then a few others here. Raiders of Atlantis. This is a more modern one. This is the Severin Blu-ray. 80s exploitation maestro Ruggero Deodato fuses the high-concept sci-fi adventure with lowbrow gorehound horror for the utterly unhinged cinema spectacle. It must be seen to be believed when a pair of Miami mercenaries, Christopher Connolly and Tony King, rescue a team of scientists investigating the lost city of Atlantis. They'll instead discover a post-apocalypse nightmare of punk rock marauders, exploding stuntmen, and synth disco carnage. Ivan Razumov, George Hilton, and soon-to-be director Michele Soavi co-star in this Italian film fanatic's wet dream. Even the most narcotic-coated mind couldn't begin to dream how amazing it is. Scanned in 4K from the Inner Positive for the first time in America, with some nice features from Severin. Yeah, this movie's nuts. So this is going to be one of the most crazy of this sort of adventure Indiana Jones adjacent kind of movies, although this is its own thing. It's got a lot of different combinations, the post-apocalyptic, the punks. There's a lot of stuff happening in this one. Raiders of Atlantis. Let's see here. A couple more. This one I just read about, and I pulled out my Blu-ray. I haven't watched yet. River of Death. Alistair MacLean's River of Death. This is an older Kino Blu-ray. This is from 1989. In the nightmarish last days of the Third Reich, a psychotic Nazi scientist, Robert Vaughn, escapes to the impenetrable jungles of the Amazon. Years later, a mysterious incurable disease breaks out among the natives, and adventurer John Hamilton, Michael Dudikoff, is hired to lead investigators on a search for the cause. Braving bloodthirsty river pirates, hostile native tribes, and headhunting cannibals, Hamilton guides a group of explorers up the deadly Rio del Morte to the fabulous lost Inca City. Action specialist Steve Carver, Lone Wolf McQuaid, directs this top-notch action-adventure based on an Alistair MacLean novel. He, of course, did Breakheart Pass, Where Eagles Dare, as I mentioned before. Fear is the Key, which is a great movie that has a imprint Blu-ray currently. The cast includes Donald Pleasance, Herbert Lom, and L.Q. Jones. So Never seen this one. Have had this Blu-ray in my collection for a while. Definitely putting it on the action adventure to watch pile for sure. And then just a few more. I won't go too deep on China with Alan Ladd and Loretta Young. Another one you can see if you look at the cover. He's got the bomber jacket and the fedora, and it's acknowledged. This is directed by John Farrow. Acknowledged this was another one that was an influence on Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, etc. That's a Kino Blu-ray. The movie Gold is a little different as an adventure movie. It's kind of about a gold mine, and I think I've talked about it on the channel before, but a very interesting one from director Peter Hunt of the James Bond series, and some really cool stuff with this gold mine and Roger Moore and Susanna York. Definitely some fun, exciting stuff in the gold mine later. So that works. And then I think I haven't seen this one, but this is one I've had for a while too. Khartoum, a Twilight Time one, directed by Basil Dearden and written by Robert Ardrey. An historical epic about the ill-fated expedition of British General Charles Gordon, that's Heston, in the late 19th century Sudan, an attempt to halt the incursion of the fanatical Muslim leader Muhammad Ahmad, played by Laurence Olivier. The self-styled Mahdi, the action-adventure yarn, chock full of thrilling battle sequences and stunning desert landscapes, a fascinating political intrigue led by British Prime Minister Gladstone, Ralph Richardson, one of the last of its breed, large-scale roadshow extravaganza with an all-star cast. So yeah, this is just one of those that I've been meaning to watch. Again, had it for years, and need to check it out. That's about it, I think, for this little video. Just a bunch of adventure films that might be fun to check out or not. You know, this is the stuff I'm thinking about watching. I'm not necessarily going to get to all these, but I thought, you know, if I put this list together, why not, you know, at least show it to you, you know? So anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.